guys, welcome to the Sheroic Podcast. I'm Cassey.
And I'm Lisa.
And today we are talking about FOMO, which stands for fear of missing out.
Yeah. I really find that interesting because by saying FOMO, it's kind of like a cute, catchy little phrase that you say, right? Hashtag FOMO. But when you actually say it, to me, I get a very different interpretation emotionally than hearing the letters. So like hearing FOMO is kind of cute, but the fear of missing out, I don't know, like that hits me so much harder.
Right, and I think it was a cute way to dig deep into a place where people don't want to talk about it, but made it okay to talk about.
Yeah. So I have a definition.
You have a definition?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm actually loving the definitions, by the way.
I like it too because it really helps me think, like, am I interpreting this the right way or the way it was meant to be interpreted?
Yeah, that's true. All right, so the definition of FOMO, the uneasy and sometimes all-consuming feeling that you're missing out, that your peers are doing in the know about or in possession of more or something better than you. And then number 2 definition is socially driven FOMO stems from a person's primitive desire to belong to a group, with each snap, tweet, or post a reminder of what separates you from them. So let's go with the first one.
Okay.
The uneasy and sometimes all-consuming feeling that you're missing out, that your peers are doing in the know, or the possessions or more of something better than you. So here's my feeling on, I guess, FOMO in general and the definition. Like, by just calling it fear already puts you in a negative headspace, right? So it's like, oh, it's something negative, so I must be missing out. But recently I heard of something called JOMO, which is the joy of missing out.
JOMO?
Yeah.
That sounds like a new brand of coffee. I love that.
When I heard it, I felt exactly the same.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? Just by calling it FOMO puts a negativity on it, right? Like, it instantly puts you in a negative mindset.
Right.
I always say you get what you focus on.
Yeah.
And it's such a negative thing. So I would love to start a movement where people do JOMOs, like forget FOMO.
Like if your friends are going out and like having fun and you just want to stay home in your PJs and eat pizza, like it's JOMO.
Yeah, because you're like, it looks cool that they're going out, but I'm actually enjoying being at home. So that joy is now like I'm enjoying missing out on their night out.
To be completely honest, I think I JOMO a lot.
Do you really?
I do. I really like being at home. Though I do travel a lot, I don't enjoy the act of traveling. And when I am somewhere else, all I want to do is be home. So when I get the chance to do it, there is so much joy in just being home, like being on my computer currently, like looking at wedding venues and looking at wedding dresses and just like sitting there, like sipping my kombucha and, you know, just in my pajamas. I love it.
Well, here's an interesting twist then.
What?
Because you want to be home. So for you, it's, you know, your joy is to be at home in your pajamas. Do you think other people look at, let's say, your social, right? Because you're out and about, you're doing these things, that they have FOMO with you, but you actually don't want to be there?
So I think we always want something that we don't have, right? Like whether you have curly hair and you want straight hair, you have blonde hair and you want black hair. I think that's very natural. And I also believe that social media has created this very much awareness of FOMO because you see your friends or your influencers, whoever, posting pictures of them in Hawaii or Mexico or in Paris, like doing amazing things. And the truth is, sometimes that picture that looks so amazing literally is only amazing within that frame. Like if you turn the camera a little bit, then there's something weird over here. Someone is, I don't know, like sneezing or throwing away trash in the corner. It's not so glamorous.
They were actually in a bad mood when they took the photo, but because they're
just posing.
Yeah.
They're just posing, and everything is a facade, especially when you're only taking a photo, which is one moment in time. And so I think that's why the rise of FOMO, or at least the rise in the awareness of FOMO has come up because of social media. And I find myself in that position sometimes too. I'm like, oh my gosh, like everyone's at like this conference and I didn't get invited. Like, what does that mean? Am I like not cool enough to be out there with all these other people? The truth is, like, if you're there, you're there. If you're not, you're not. And if you want to be there, then figure out how to get there next year. I don't know.
That's
So,
actually really empowering. Can you say that again? That was freaking awesome.
I think sometimes you can use your FOMO as a motivator.
Yeah.
That's basically what I meant.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Like it never really dawned on me like that. Have you done that then?
Yeah, I think so. But I think there's two ways to look at it. Like there's the FOMO where you feel like you're not good enough to be there, and that you weren't invited because maybe you're not cool enough or you're not influential enough or something. And so you fear that by not being there, you're not surrounded by people that you want to be like, maybe. And then the other fear is only a momentary, where the fear of not being, I don't know, like at some place in your business or social life makes you want to figure out, how do I get there?
Yeah.
But I don't even know. I wouldn't even call that fear. I think it's just an awareness that you're not there. And so you have to figure out a path to get there. I think the original FOMO is more like you feel like everyone else is getting better while you're not. Like everyone, like for example, some of your friends are taking extra courses at night, getting their master's degree or something, and you feel like you're FOMOing because here you are not bettering yourself. So you fear on that level. But in that case, like if you don't like that fear, then do something about it. I don't know. Yeah. That's what I think.
I think also just as a fear of kind of like the definition, people want to be part of things, right? They want to feel like part of a tribe. They want to feel like part of a group. Yeah. And if you're not there on a certain evening, so like I've had this a few times where, you know, I've decided not to go out or do an event or whatever, and then you see photos and it kind of, like, I always analyze how I feel when I see those photos, because if I have a fear of missing out and I'm like, oh man, I wasn't there, like it makes me analyze, okay, well, why wasn't I there? Was I not invited? Okay, why wasn't I invited? Did I say no because I chose a different path to do something else that night? But then when it's like a friendship thing, and your friends will go out and you decide not to. And then you get together with them a few days later, a week later or something, and they start talking about something funny that happened that night. Oh. Have you ever had that?
Yeah.
And you kind of feel like you're not part of that joke or part of that story. Yeah. So you actually feel a little like kind of reserved, like kind of pushed out. So I think that in those situations, FOMO doesn't just happen for like that one event. It kind of happens afterwards as well, because people are telling the stories and the experiences, and then you're kind of sitting there and everyone's laughing and you're not part of it. I recognize those feelings and emotions, and I try to remind myself of that when I make decisions about whether I'm going to go out or not go out or do something.
So I was invited to go to the Streamies, the Red Carpet Awards, and I really wanted to go and put on a beautiful dress, get my hair and makeup done. Plus, I needed a new Getty image picture because I don't like my current Getty image picture that everybody uses. And I feel like that day my dress was wrinkled and I just look like haphazard. Anyway, so I really wanted to go to the Streamies to see my friends and everything. But at the same time, Google reached out and asked me to be on a panel at Adweek in New York. And it literally landed on the same day. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't know what to do. And I had major FOMO on both sides. I was just like, okay, if I don't go to the Streamies, then I am going to miss being on the red carpet and missing all my friends. And then if I don't go to Adweek, I don't get to experience being on a panel in front of a bunch of advertisers, which I think is really cool. And so at the end of the day, I just had to ask myself, which one is going to bring me more value? And I said, okay, I think being at Adweek for the very first time, because I've been to the Streamies like multiple times, is going to be better for me. So when I consciously made that decision and was okay with it, when the Streamies went on that Tuesday and I was in New York, I was very okay with it. Like, I saw the photos, I saw everyone look great and amazing, and I was like, cool, I'll just look at who won the awards and it'll be fine. And it was fine. Yeah. But I think you just have to make a decision that you are going to miss out and it's going to be okay, because what you're choosing to do is better. But that's only in a position where you have a choice. I know some places you don't have a choice, aka you weren't invited to a party or something like that.
But that's because that's the thing. Like, if you don't have a choice, and you, I think we touched on it earlier, right? Where you're like, why wasn't I invited? Is that something I want to change and work towards? But what you just said now, where you've got these two opportunities, right? From a business standpoint, And they're both really strong business opportunities. Did you ever analyze emotionally how you would feel at both? Or was it purely just okay, what is better to move me forward from a business perspective? Did you allow your emotions to come into that kind of analysis?
Emotionally, I wanted to be at the Streamies. I wanted to dress up and be with my friends and see the show. Of course, I wanted to do that. But I also knew that it'd be better for me, like educationally and also experience-wise, if I could do something I haven't done before. And so that's why I chose to go to New York instead. And it was still fun. I met people that I hadn't known before. So it was either experience something new or experience something kind of the same and comfortable, you know what I mean? And so I like pushing myself. So I usually always go for the thing that is a little bit more uncomfortable. But also I really like being on panels. So that made it a little bit easier. Yeah.
So did you do anything then to not feel emotional when you saw the photos from the Streamies?
I think at that point I had already been like, cool, like I'm not going, so I'm fine. So
you'd made the decision, knew what...
Long before. Yeah.
And that obviously makes a massive difference.
You have to be okay with it in yourself. But again, this is because I had the choice.
Right.
But in an instance where you don't have the choice, I wasn't a popular girl in school. And so I wasn't invited to a lot of things.
Aww.
And I think perhaps I just like mentally blocked all of that out and it just didn't matter.
And that actually probably was the defensive mechanism.
Maybe.
So that you wouldn't feel hurt all the time.
Right. You just kind of like put your horse blinders on and pretend it's not happening. And then you just move forward, which is sometimes really the best thing to do.
Yeah.
Because why pay attention to the noise when you weren't there or weren't wanted there, right?
Yeah. And I guess a good point that you just made me think of is predictability, right? It's like if you know, let's talk about social media, for example. If you know that there's someone on social media that doesn't make you feel good because every time you see it, you feel left out, you feel like you're not a part of it, you have the choice to not follow them. Right? You have the choice to not look at their social. So if it's actually creating this like emotional turmoil in you because every time you see it, you feel badly about yourself because you feel like you're missing out, like take action. Actually stop, the habit loop of like following them and feeling bad and then following them again and seeing their photos and feeling bad. I find that very empowering to know like, oh, I actually don't have to do this.
Right. Yeah. Have you had an experience that you can think of right now where you were major FOMO?
I'm very aware that FOMO exists.
Okay.
And so I try to, when it's certain decisions like what you were saying with the business, like which one do you go to, I've definitely stopped and thought about making sure that I don't have FOMO. So for instance, with kids, and business.
Oh, let's talk about that. Yeah.
Literally, I recognize that the decision to not have children could lead down the road for me fearing that I've missed out.
But at the moment, you don't have FOMO about not having kids.
Correct.
But you fear later you might.
Correct.
Oh.
So
it's like future FOMO.
Yes. Yeah, protecting myself from future FOMO. Yeah, you're right.
Oh, okay.
So, for instance, so Tom and I probably now, maybe 2 years ago, finally decided, we actually aren't going to have kids. We're going to, go down the path of entrepreneurship and our business and really kind of making sure that we're spending every ounce that we can together and working on our relationship. And that's just the path we chose.
Okay.
But I had to analyze because I was very aware that one day I could regret that decision, right? And I could regret. So like, I didn't want to get to a point where I would see women with children and then have FOMO about it.
So you currently don't feel that right now?
Right. So I don't currently feel it, but I also had to understand that as you age, right, getting pregnant is harder and harder.
Yeah.
So there's going to come a point where what if I do want children now and I can't because I'm too old or for whatever reason I can't bear children?
Do you think one day you could just wake up and want children?
I don't know if it's just a one day thing, but I definitely think things could happen in my life that could create that. Really every year since I've been married, we've been talking about, do we have children? Is this the year? Kind of, I think, just talking about it.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where we were seriously considering not having kids. Yeah. And that's where I said, I really fear one day missing out on this. Because I get the emotional satisfaction people get from having children. Yeah. I really do. Like the connection, the bond, the fact that it's from you,
Yeah.
you've bared it in your stomach. Like, that really carries weight for me. And like people say, like, when you get older, what are your Christmas and family vacations going to look like? And so I think about all of this. And I think that I'm very aware that one day I may regret not having children, and I don't want to fear missing out on it. So we sat down and kind of wrote pros and cons on what life looks like with kids or what life looks like without kids.
Okay.
And then to take it even further, just personally for me, it was what life looks like as a businesswoman and an entrepreneur, and what life looks like with children. And kind of analyzing like what you did with the event, it's like, okay, what do both look like in my world?
Yeah.
Because once I've made the decision, then I don't have that fear or regret.
Right. Exactly.
Which is why when you say, do I have FOMO now? I don't, because we did all our pros and cons on what the pros of having kids are, what the pros of not, what the pros are of me being in business and doing what really drives me and makes me feel alive.
Yeah.
And it's this, right? It's creating impact. It's creating like great, impactful content.
Yeah.
And once I was okay with that decision, I knew that it was a choice, right? Just like you can either go to the Google event or you can go to the awards. You knew what was right for you in the long term, and I knew what was right for me in the long term.
Good.
So that's why with kids, like, I have no fear anymore of what if. Like, what if I want kids? Like, could it be possible? 100%. Closing myself off to the fact that the possibility isn't there is, I think putting blinders on.
Yeah.
So it's very possible that it could come up and I may feel it.
Yeah.
But because I've gone through the process of analyzing, I've gone through the process of really understanding both sides, when I made the decision, I have JOMO. I have JOMO in my decision.
That's so good. That's really, really good. Thank you for sharing that with us. I feel like it's super personal and probably hard to talk about because certain women can get very judgy about that, and kids, it's a very like normal thing to do, and so what you're doing may seem abnormal, but however I read some books and I notice that a lot of quote unquote power women, no, I'm not even gonna quote unquote that, power women,
I love it.
choose not to have kids because they're so focused on their business, and it is like their baby.
Yeah.
And it is their full-time job, because being a mom is a full-time job, and it's amazing what moms can do. So I guess it's a very personal decision. So thank you for sharing that story.
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
Thank you for listening.
yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing. I think that it's just important for people to look at what they can potentially feel in the future. Like, I'm always thinking like that because I don't just act for the now, because the now, it may feel good in that moment, right? But like in a month, it may not feel good at all.
Yeah.
So, and that's why, going back to what we were saying right at the beginning of the conversation of FOMO, like it just in its words, fear of missing out puts fear inside you. But if you can flip it and go like, what is the joy that you're going to have?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I decided with, like, I get the joy that I could have with my children, but it's kind of one step removed. Like, I recognize immediately the joy I get from business, the joy I get from sitting with you, right, and doing this podcast.
Yeah.
And let's even face it, right, the time and energy it takes to do the podcast, to also have our own businesses and run it, it's so consuming that you've got to really want to do it and get the JOMO from it versus always erring on the FOMO side of things, where you are always constantly thinking of the things you're missing out on versus the things that bring you joy. So social media, in fact, I think plays a massive part in the FOMO world, like you were saying.
Oh my gosh, so much.
So apart from, let's say, not following people that make you feel badly, what other tips would you have maybe of, let's say, people who suffer from it? Because I think it can really be destructive.
You know what? I think it comes from a place of having low self-esteem. Because if you feel like part of your self-worth is you should have been invited to something, or I wish I were there, in like a pitiful type of way, then it's something that you need to look at within yourself. Because I think confident people can be like, yeah, JOMO, I'm here in my sweatpants at home eating pizza, and that's awesome. But for someone who really thinks like, oh my gosh, I wish I could be part of that glamorous life in the Hamptons or whatever with all my friends, and you start feeling bad about yourself, I think it starts with knowing who you are, what you really value and what you really like, and not trying to compare yourself to other people. Because like I always say, comparison is a thief of joy, like 100%. And I find myself like in moments where I'm so like unhappy and I'm just like, what's going on? And it's because I'm looking at this other girl or this other person and comparing my business or my life to them. And I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, this is not necessary. Like, it's literally all in my head. And even FOMO's all in your head.
Right, yeah.
It's just your perspective. And so when you can change FOMO to JOMO, then you should feel confident and enjoy the things that actually make you happy instead of what you think should make you happy.
Right. Yeah, it's all about perspective. Yeah, things that I do with, I guess, fear of missing out and making a decision is I do like the weight game, right? Like, it's like, okay, well, what would I gain from here? What would I gain from here? What would I not gain from here and, feel badly? Or what would I not gain from here and feel badly? But then also I do like the gut check.
What's that?
So, like, let's say, for instance, in a situation where you're hanging out with your boyfriend and all your friends are going out, right? Which one do I do? What do you think deep down you would be sad to miss? Because I think one weighs more than the other. So it's like this thing that I do. It's called the fake coin toss.
Okay.
So basically, I imagine a coin being tossed in the air, it's coming down, and let's say I say heads is you're gonna do this business and tails you're gonna do this business. As the coin comes down and I imagine it landing on one or the other, let's say heads, and I've chosen the business on the right side, that split second in the gut, do you ever get that? Like, where actually, like, really if it feels right or not?
Yeah. But you don't want to listen to it.
You don't want to listen to it. But that to me is so important.
Okay, so let's break down FOMO real quick. And let's just go to the fear part.
Okay.
What things in life do you fear?
Ooh. My biggest fear that I actually use now as a strength is regretting something. So, I mean, going back to the FOMO thing, it literally is like, what if I regret not having children? What if I regret, in fact, here's a perfect example, moving from England to America, right? I had to analyze. I recognize I will miss out on family events. I will miss out on family occasions, on birthdays, on the little things that happen, if someone's just got a new job and you go out to celebrate. Like, I recognize I will miss out on all of that because I'm in America. And that makes me sad. But I also look at it and say, okay, but what does moving to America bring me? And I go, okay, well, if I didn't pursue my husband, if I didn't, obviously my boyfriend, I guess, but if I didn't do that, would I miss out there? And which one would I regret the most? And so when I got married and we were talking about, do we live in America or in England? Tom was like, he always wanted to live in Los Angeles. So that wasn't really for him a decision. And so for me, it was like, well, if I decide that I want to be with my family, I may lose him. So that was a big decision. And so I just had to go, well, I know that ultimately I'm going to miss out on one thing, right? I can't change that. I'm going to miss out on something. So the question is, what am I going to regret the most? And when I looked at it and I thought, I'm going to regret not giving my relationship a go because I love my family, but I know deep down that all those little events and occasions is not going to shape me as a woman and as an adult, whereas my partner, like, I wanted to be married to him for life. So that really will shape my future. And so analyzing it like that now allows me to then not have regrets or fears of my family in England. But that does not mean that I don't miss out. And that doesn't mean that I don't feel sad that I miss out. Because even now, I mean, I've been here for 15 years. Seeing photos of my entire family, all my cousins, everyone getting together, and I'm not there, I do feel sad. But I remind myself the decision I made.
Right,
and
you made that choice.
Yeah, and I made that choice. And so that has really helped me not regret things. Really helped me. Because,
that's really good.
Because pretending like you're not going to feel that, I think is setting yourself up for
Oh,
disaster.
yeah. It makes it even more painful because you know the truth. Yeah.
But that's kind of going back to like weighing your options, right? Like, what are the pros and cons if you do it? And then what are the pros and cons if you don't?
Yeah.
And, you know, we get asked that a lot actually on like people who are going like, do I like keep studying at college, or do I go to this job? Like, do I follow my passion? Like, they have, I think ultimately the fear of missing out on one of those opportunities.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think when people ask us, like, what would you do, like, if you had an opportunity to do this job, but, you know, let's say you're in the middle of college and, you know, it's not your passion, but you're halfway through your semester, and what do you do? I think that's kind of like the fear of, like, not sure which one to do, because if you choose one, are you going to miss out on the other?
I feel like living it in a place of FOMO is not healthy, and if you don't like it, you can really get yourself out of it quickly. And so that's why I think I'm having sort of an issue talking about my own personal experiences with FOMO, because if anything, it would have been when I was a lot younger and social anxiety and friends and the popular kid hierarchy was so big in your life. But I think I dealt with that by putting my blinders on, and so I can't really remember.
Yeah, the funny thing is, as you were talking, I was thinking about working your way up the ladder in a business, right? So, for instance, I started when we were at Quest and we started the studio. A lot of it was hands-on.
Yeah.
So I was doing a lot of the creative myself. You know, we were one director, one editor, and then me. It was kind of, you know, so everything on set, everything we were doing, every production I was involved in, my hands were like basically, you know, my creativeness was all on every project. But then as we got bigger and I started stepping into more of the leadership role and hiring people underneath me, I actually really felt like I was missing out on the cool creative side because I was enjoying it so much. But I'd gone more into the leadership role. And as the leadership role, as we were building the studio in Quest, it meant that I had to be more attentive to the finances and making sure people are delivering their work on time and, you know, really taking that next level.
Yeah.
But all the fun, creative stuff was happening without me.
Okay, you've brought up a FOMO moment for me in business. Yes, I think, okay, so as you grow a business, you go from being super hands-on in everything and knowing exactly like how everything needs to be to like more of like a managerial role, more of a leadership role, and being, I mean, delegation for me was like so hard and still is, and I'm very hands-on with all with creative work, but I'm not always the one doing the graphic design. I may be art directing it or creative directing it. And so in the beginning, I think I had major, again, I don't know if I want to use FOMO because I don't think I feared the missing out. I feared the end result. Do you know what I mean? Like it's okay that I wasn't doing the actions of graphic design, but I semi-feared where this was going to end up if I didn't do that. Is that FOMO?
Well, I think, is it FOMO? I think from what I'm understanding, it's basically because you can't be hands-on.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's choosing a path, right? Because if you're going into the leadership role, you have to give
you have
up.
to. You actually don't really have a choice.
Right, but you're missing out on the hands-on creative part of it.
But I'm finding creativity in other ways.
Right.
So at least my creative juices are still flowing. It's just a
Right.
different type of flow.
But that's actually really important to note, right? Is
Yeah.
that just because you're choosing a path, right, where, because you could stay the rest of your life sitting and drawing designs, right? But you wouldn't be where you are today. You wouldn't, you know, be doing all, like leading this, like, in fact, your bottle's amazing. Like doing crazy, amazing things like this.
This is what she's talking about.
That is
if
what
you're
I'm
on
talking
YouTube,
about.
you can see this is my little hot pink bottle. It
Right.
keeps all my ice inside cold for 24 hours.
Right, but even something like that, it's like, I'm sure you're hands-on, but there's certain things that you may want to love to do, but you just don't have the time to do it. And so you have to make those choices.
You have to make the choice and you have to be okay with it or else you can't move on.
Right.
And so what alleviated my pain is that you hire people that are better than you. So you won't be afraid of the end result. And now I'm very happy that we have such a solid team, our bloggy fam at the office. And I know they listen to this podcast, so you guys, shout out to you guys are amazing. And it makes my job easier in a sense that I don't have to be as hands-on, as there, because I can trust that they'll use their creativity to make incredible work. And so it's been a pleasure to really see them grow creatively and create beautiful products. So,
but you're also then taking that things that you've now, let's say, handed off to them. You trust them. You've hired people that are really good at it. So you trust them. But that creative side of you that you love, you're still making sure you maintain that, correct?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, and yes, absolutely. And I think I've found a new joy in creative direction, art direction, really honing and defining what my vision is and what my eye is, so that when I see colors and I see shapes, I know better how to direct so that we can get towards the end result that's going to be better for everyone. And when you're doing graphic design by yourself, you know exactly what you want to do. So you will take your marker or something and draw this line here. But now to tell someone how that line looks like in your head, that's a skill that you really have to learn. And I've been trying to, get better at over the past couple of years. Yeah. But it's been, I like that it's a challenge for me to be able to communicate creative thoughts. I think that's a difficult thing to do, at least for me. But luckily, we have a team that is very flexible. All of us are always contributing new ideas. So the end result ends up going through so many different drafts and phases that what we come up with ends up being so cool. And we don't stop until we're all proud of it.
Right.
But yeah. Anyway.
And what I love is that you found a way to take a step into the leadership role and then not also miss out on the hands-on creative.
Yeah, for sure. And then I still draw all my designs and everything. So I still get my happy from that as well. Yeah.
Because, when we were at Quest, we were doing so many different shoots at one point where we were releasing new products and we were coming out with commercials and we were doing TV shows and, we had Inside Quest and we had so many different shows going on and I couldn't be everywhere at once.
Right.
But I kind of felt like a piece of my heart would belong to each of those shows. And so it was hard. It really was, because in my position, I had to be more hands-on on the most important project for the company versus what I personally actually wanted and enjoyed doing. And that was kind of tough for me. And I had to remind myself that I chose this life, right? I chose that I want to be in this position. I chose that I want to lead the media department and build the studio. And if I was missing out on these smaller productions that my heart belonged to, then I need to go back and work on those smaller productions. But I can't then fear missing out as a leader. Right, because I have to make that choice.
Right. You do have to make the choice.
And I remember once when we were, it was a massive commercial. It was the biggest commercial we'd ever done at Quest. And we had Inside Quest, the show on the Mind. We had that running on the same day. And maybe it wasn't the same day, but it was the same week. And I could only put my attention on one thing.
Okay.
And Inside Quest was not pushing the product, right? The commercial was pushing the product. But my heart was definitely a part of Inside Quest because I really felt like we were making impact on people.
Right. So, and for those of you who don't know, Inside Quest is, how would you explain it?
Yeah, so it's a show about the mind.
Like a talk show.
A talk show, exactly, where we brought on influencers and celebrities and spoke about their successes and their failures.
So kind of like impact theory.
Yeah, exactly. So basically we took Inside Quest and turned it into impact theory.
Got it. Cool.
Thank you for defining that. So literally we had Inside Quest. It was a show I was truly, truly passionate about. My heart was in it because we were actually changing lives. We were getting emails and letters every day saying, because of this show, you've really made me realize and you're changing my life. And so personally, I was getting so much satisfaction out of that. But here I was with our biggest production of all time at Quest, with a commercial of a big release. We had so much money invested in this commercial. We had celebrities and influencers and all of that. And so I needed to spend the time there. And I remember sitting back and going, okay, I chose this life, so I chose to be in this situation. But I really want to be part of Inside Quest shoot. And I felt like I was missing out. And so even though I just spent like the last, 3 years building the studio and building a team and stuff to do massive commercials that I thought I really wanted, it kind of hit me that, oh, wow, I'm in a position where I've actually worked hard to get what I want. And now that I'm here, it's not giving me the emotional satisfaction that I thought I would have. And here's this other thing that's actually not as time consuming, but it's truly got my heart. And so I was really missing out. And so at the time, I actually just put my emotions aside. And I said, doesn't matter. You can't concentrate on that. You have to do what's better for the company. And after that shoot, it really hit me. And I turned to Tom and I said, like, I don't know what to do because my heart really is on, you know, an inside quest. And I feel like I'm not getting my satisfaction anymore. And so I think in telling that story, my point being is that I think it's important to analyze really what is true to you and keep analyzing it because, you know, I went from a housewife to a businesswoman and moving from England to America. So I'd made all these choices based on what am I going to fear the least. And here I was, I'd got myself in a position where I thought I got what I wanted.
You thought you were living the dream. Yeah.
But here there was something that I knew it wasn't even fear of missing out. I felt like I really was missing out. And so instead of standing back and going, oh, well, it is what it is, I think that you can take control of your life and then make decisions to go, okay, well, if I'm really truly missing out on this and I really feel like I am, then I have to do something about it. Ignoring that doesn't help. And I tried to ignore it.
Right. You have to be intuitive with yourself. Check your gut. So it sounds like the superpower of this episode is that you have the choice to choose your path. And just listen to your body, listen to your heart, go in the direction that makes you happy, and don't go in the direction that doesn't. But it's okay if you're off path a little bit. You can always turn back. And so I think that's what's helped both of us make our decisions, get through life, and get where we are because we empowered ourselves.
Yes.
And we didn't pity ourselves.
And that's so important that I really hope people at home hear is that you need to empower yourself. And just by thinking about the fear of missing out doesn't empower you. It puts you in a negative headspace. It makes you focus on the negative, right? And I think you hit the nail on the head. And you need to empower yourself in every way, everything you do and every way you think. And, you know,
Yeah. Thank you for talking about your situation so openly and being so vulnerable. I always really appreciate that. And
I really think it's a subject that people need to talk more about.
I do.
About having kids.
I do.
Because it's not like I hate kids. I freaking love kids.
Yeah.
You know, the thought of bearing a child is like, it makes me smile just thinking about like the baby kicking inside you. Like I do get that.
Yeah.
So I just think it's important to not feel guilty and not have to perceive women as if you don't have children, it means that you don't like children. If you don't have children, you're not maternal. Right. Like I think that we need to start bringing those two thoughts back together and saying like sometimes it's just, you know, a decision someone makes, but it doesn't bear any reflection on who they are as a human.
Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining us. And don't forget, be
Sheroic!